teachers are saying like, okay, we can't get them to do this, so let's just drop it. Okay, we can't get them to do that, so let's just drop it. It might be that they're not ready for a certain thing that's in the curriculum. So I think the answer is not to drop it, but to adjust the individual education plan, so that they can't, there's certain things that they're always working on to improve. Right, so the next thing I want to talk about a little bit is visions of inclusion and what inclusion means, because you know, I'm not an expert in this area. I haven't done a substantial amount of published research in this area, but I read a lot about this. And from what I can say, in Asia particularly, definitions of inclusion are all over the map. And I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that definitions of inclusion do need to be sort of chiseled out department by department, or institution by institution, or school by school. You know, of course, we have laws as a foundation for the definition of inclusion, but I think that every organization, every school has a certain capacity, right? So that needs to be ironed out. But I think one of the common problems that I often see in school, and I saw it with my own kid, is teachers often focus on equality. That kid has to be like every other kid. So for example, I had negotiated, and it took a long time, not to have my child in Japanese as a second language class. He went to Japanese school for 4 years, but he went to international for another 4 years. And when he was in international school, the first thing I did was negotiate an exit ramp from Japanese as second language, because I just thought it was overwhelming for him as he was trying to get, you know, adjusted to a new school. And it was okay for the first 2 years, but I realized that when he wasn't in Japanese class, all he was doing was sitting alone in his homeroom class. And in his third year, the teacher just said, well, no, he has to be like everybody else. He has to go to Japanese class, which he couldn't do because he'd already missed the first 2 years. And so the teacher just asked him to leave, and he sat outside on a bench during Japanese. And I think that, you know, that attitude speaks to the whole kind of equality thing, right? Like, everybody should be equal, but the fact of the matter is, even with so-called neurotypical students, they're just not equal. They're just different. They're different. And we need to create, as much as we can, and it's a very long process and it never finishes, but some measure of equity for our students, so that we can actually have a little bit of a level playing field. And, you know, I think one huge step towards that in general education has been the shift from norm referenced assessment to criterion reference assessment. But I think we need to go a step more away from criterion reference assessment to individual assessments, where students have choices of how they want to be assessed, and students are able to make some of their own goals for what they're learning. I know that's difficult. It is difficult. And I struggle with that too in class, like how to balance between working in an institution and working with other, you know, teachers in a department where we have department goals. But I think that there is some space in any class to create equity by helping students individualize a little bit their education, so that they can reach certain goals the way that they reach them, and not using the same assignments as everybody else, right? And I think, you know, getting back to a little bit what I had said before about neurodiversity, it is a culture. It's a culture that's developing quickly. And I think that within this culture, it's, you know, neurodiversity is often written about as something that's very similar to LGBTQIA culture, where it's a group that's kind of been suppressed and people are embarrassed and ashamed of them. And you kind of have to come out of the neurodiversity closet and say you have such and such brain conditions and things like that. And I do think that now, because of the internet, there's a lot more communication between neurodiverse people that's possible. And I think that, at first I felt a little bit intrusive, trying to get into these Facebook groups that are run by autistic people for autistic people and things. I thought I wouldn't be very well accepted there, but I was. And I've been able to really learn a lot from this culture, which for me, it just struck me as a very beautiful culture. Like it's a place where you don't have to worry so much about being direct and asking direct things. You can understand very quickly, people put their cards on their table very quickly, which I appreciated. And it's also a culture where there's a lot of sensitivity. So it's the physical part of the sensory sensitivity is one thing, but the inner sensitivity that I noticed in a lot of neurodiverse people, not just autistic people, but other neurodiverse people, is they've struggled a lot. They've struggled a lot in their lives, and they're very sensitive towards other people's struggles as well. And they tend, because of sensory sensitivity, I think they tend to want a black and white situations quite a lot. They feel maybe more comfortable with the sort of black and white perspective on the world. So a lot of, things that happen in the world that they consider to be unjust really bother them and trouble them to the point that they feel debilitated by, things that are happening. And I think it's important as teachers to know that and to include understanding of that in the classroom, but to try and get a bit closer to this culture, because again, as a parent, I think most people do, still apologize to you when you say that your kid is autistic, or, they feel that it's a burden, and it's not. It's a culture to enter into that's just as special as any other culture we know, right? It has a lot to teach us. And I think that even though it's scary for some of us, and I feel the same in the classroom when I have neurodiverse students, I don't always know how to approach them, don't always know what they need and how to talk to them, but to try and be as much as possible a kind of model for, including people, not avoiding what I would, probably most people would label, kind of strange classroom behavior, to be more accepting of it and to say, yeah, I understand how you must feel, and why don't we talk about your neurodiversity in class? Because a lot of students don't understand neurodiversity at all, and they need the teachers in the class to be the first person to model that, and they need the students, if possible. It's according to age, of course, but they need those students to be models of inclusion. There's a lot of programs available in Canada and the US where neurotypical students are taught through workshops about neurodiversity, and they're paired with a neurodiverse student in class. They're like a support person, right? I think those types of programs can be helpful. I think getting teachers and students to work together to make a presentation about the specific needs or specific issues that a student has, all of those things are useful. And, I think particularly in the Japanese situation, there's, my students have told me anyway, that there's some, bullying or just, the attitude of, you have to be like us in order to be accepted. So what we do is we work in a group, and we work at, 2:00 in the morning. I have an autistic student now who told me a story like this, where, she has to work in a group, and they meet really late, and it's hard for her to do that. And, I think taking into account that not everybody has to work in a group all the time, or, kind of accepting and appreciating these differences helps to build a community of support where there wasn't one before. And, community takes a lot to build, and it requires a lot of communication. And right now I'm struggling with that in my own work. And we definitely struggled with that in international school. It's hard to identify bullying. It's hard to find out exactly how to create acceptance. It's hard to balance that with all the other million things that you have to do during the day. But I mention it because I think that it's something that we all have to consider as educators, how to develop an inclusive community in class and in our institutions. And, oftentimes we talk about asking experts, and, you know, of course, the guy in the white coat looks like the expert, or possibly the parent vocalizing for their kid. But I really do think that sitting down with even younger kids and asking, what's difficult for you in this class? How can we help you? We have these kind of things available. Which ones would you want? I think from the very beginning is important. So the expert should always be considered the person with the disability and nobody else. And I think changing that attitude towards the psychologist is not the expert, the parent is not the expert, is an important step forward in creating inclusive environments for people, because they should be advocating for themselves, even if they're not verbal. They have other ways of communicating what they need, and we have to find out ways so that they can communicate that. And, you know, the experts say about inclusion that it's an opportunity for us to become more empathetic towards people that are different from us. You know, a lot of times, like, peer programs are, you know, they're considered to be, wow, it's so benevolent that, you know, you're coming to help us. I think we need to take a step away from that attitude of benevolence and think more towards these opportunities to work with neurodiverse people, offer everybody a chance to reach full potential, everyone. Teachers, fellow students, etc. We're not doing favors to people, and we're not being benevolent. You know, I've read a lot about, you know, autistic people saying, what if we pathologized you? How would we describe you? Well, the description is people that are socially obsessed, who talk too much, who touch too much. And I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, that's right. If we were the minority, we would be a pathology, and other people would look towards us and try to behavioralize us into having less small talk, touching each other less, etc. Right? So it depends what the majority is. I think a lot of the social problems and inclusion problems come from a society that's not very accepting. So I think what we need to do, these experts, these autism experts that are autistic people themselves, say, look at us and working with us as an opportunity for two people to walk down a road together, and each of them has a chance to reach full potential. So yeah, that's it. So yeah, if you have questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer some of them, but that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, a lot to sort of think about. And just in the chat, there was one question, Jennifer, and I thought how you would approach this. So as friends or as teachers, how do we approach friends or parents maybe in denial that maybe their child needs some extra help? Or how would you approach that sort of situation? What's your take on that idea?
Yeah, well, you know, we're not doing anybody any favors by not saying anything. I think, again, like, you know, things change, right? Look at what Emily Pearl Kingsley wrote. Like, I mean, I think for me, I would have wanted at least one teacher that my child had to say to validate my worries. Everybody denied. I wasn't in denial. They were in denial, or they were just not comfortable to talk to me about it. But I think it was very obvious. Like, I mean, the other parents too started looking at me with pity. They knew, everybody knew, but nobody said anything. And I think, you know, when you, like, when you're kind of going through this process where you don't have a blood test, you know, to check for something, it's not an easy diagnostic process. You have to wait for up to 6 months to just get, you know, off the waiting list and into the clinical room. And then you have to have another 6 months of really difficult testing. So, you know, this is a process that everyone has to go through if they have a neurodiverse child. And I think at least we need to validate some of that. Like if a teacher is approached by a parent saying, I'm kind of worried about da, 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 which parents often do, I think that's the inroad, right?
Mm.
That's the opportunity to say something. And most people are kind of, I guess, hesitant to say that. I remember a very specific situation when I transitioned my kid into like an international preschool. And there was another boy that I recognized right away that had autism, just the way he walked and how his fingers were. And he had never had a haircut, which my son either. He had long hair when he was 3, you just couldn't touch his head.
Mm-hmm.
And those parents were asking everyone and saying to everyone, he's not talking yet, we're worried. And all the parents would say, oh, you know, he's a boy, so they talk later. And I just told the mom, Aviv, like I said, my son has autism. I think your son has autism. And she recoiled. But then she said, you know what, I think so too. Like parents know, they know, right? Especially if they have another kid, they know that what's going on is not normal and they're waiting for somebody to validate it, I think. And there's also other ways to say, you know what, I've noticed that your child is good at A, B, and C. You might want to think about, you know, what have you noticed about, say, their hand flapping, or they're not eating anything that, you know, things that are touching each other on the plate they don't want to eat or whatever. Ask them about it and see what their reaction is. I think those are possible inroads to talking to parents.
Okay, thank you. So are there any other questions? Like I just picked up this question from early on in the chat. Are there any other questions? Yes, Daniel.
Hi, thank you, Jennifer, for your presentation. Really
Hi,
enjoyed
thanks
it.
for coming.
Question, because this is coming, she took it from the parent's perspective and you feel something about your child and you wish that maybe the teachers or someone would bring it up as well. Now, how about the flip side? I mean, I've actually heard many cases where the teachers from watching over young children see it, but it's a very sensitive issue to mention to the parent. And so many times I've seen the parents, like you just said, recoil, explode, and no, my child is fine. What are you talking about? But the way it's phrased, I mean, for example, daycare or kindergarten, they phrase it as your child has difficulty doing A, B, or C, because they're not doctor, they don't diagnose anything, but they'll just say the difficulty doing this. Maybe you may want to consider getting some special check. But I noticed majority of parents then explode at the teachers. And what's your take on that? How do you develop more understanding with parents as well?
Yeah, I think, you know, things take time to change, but it's possible to change them. And I know, like, my husband is from Israel, and in Israel it was similar about 20 years ago. But now, because the neurodiversity movement is really strong there, attitudes have changed through society. And there's been, you know, a lot like ad campaigns on TV and different films and movies with Israeli stars that have really brought sort of a neurodiversity approach into the community and into the culture. And now there's a lot less of that. It's almost like, you know, if the teacher comes to you and says, oh, you might want to check out A, B, and C, you go and check it out. Just like if you were having a physical symptom, you'd go and check it out, right? You wouldn't be in denial about a physical symptom, right? So I think it takes time to change. And, you know, I'm sure that you're all familiar with Ken Robinson, right? In his really famous TED Talk about creativity and education, he says, we are the system. We are the system. And if we don't change the system, nothing's going to change the system. And I think that, you know, parents might explode at first, but I think every parent does kind of have a sense, a feeling that there's something there. And, you know, there are ways to bring it up. And I have done that in Japan. And I know other parents of neurodiverse kids do that too, because I know, like, we talk about these things. And yeah, nothing is going to change unless we do it. And I know that most teachers, though, that I talk to say they're not comfortable doing that, and they're worried about doing that because parents react badly. Yeah. I admit that that's definitely a problem here.
We have some more
Thank you.
questions in the chat box. I'm wondering, Alex, is it okay with you if we take 5 more minutes and do some more questions for Jennifer?
Sorry, I'm muted. Yes, absolutely. I would like people to continue this part of the discussion. And I'm listening, and I'm just adjusting my presentation to fit around what Jennifer's already done. So yeah, but yeah, please continue.
Namiko says, I think most teachers feel ill-equipped to communicate directly with the parents, depending where they teach and what their qualifications are. What kind of neurodiversity training do pre-service or in-service teachers receive here? Meaning Japan?
Mm-hmm.
Attending other sessions, it seems like there's very little on-site training unless you take initiative and seek it out.
Yeah, I would say that that's a fair description. Davey would know better because he's doing a PhD in that area.
Yeah, I was going to say Davey.
Yeah, Davey would know.
If he's here. So
He was here earlier. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if he's
I'm
still
here.
here, but
oh, good.
Yeah, I'm happy to comment on that if you like.
yeah.
It's startlingly little. There's a huge lack of training, both in so if teachers are getting in Japan are getting teacher certification as part of a bachelor's degree in education, then they're required to take one, like credit essentially on special education. And there are, I'm in the in my department, I teach at Sophia University, and in my department we have a teacher training track, and so students in the teacher training track to be English language teachers, they have to take one course, and they say that it's really not enough. So the course that is there, people say is not enough, and so that's that. And then in turn, if you're getting a master's or something like that, then that requirement goes away. And so then it's up to individual one second, buddy. It's up to individual master's programs to include that. And I don't know specific numbers about Japan, but globally in, like the hundreds of MATESOL programs out there, there's not a really good comprehensive survey, but there's ways you can sort of determine looking at it obliquely to see what the number of specific coursework on inclusive practices and inclusive education is in MATESOL programs. And it's like fewer than 4% of MATESOL programs and give any attention to this matter at all. And at least in Japan, what research has been done out, what little research has been done, and the research that I'm doing now, people in our field have reported very, 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 very little training, a need for that training, a desire for that training, but a lack of feeling prepared and a lack of understanding about the issues. Although there's a desire and concern that is there.
I would second that. So pre-service teachers get 2 credit points, so semester length unit on special education, and certainly maybe that's not enough. On the other hand, for example, if you look at the elementary school English teachers, they only get 2 courses on English education as well. So I think the problem though is that the whole curriculum is pretty packed, is the other issue. So
Sorry, can I say something? I guess that's why teachers also feel incredibly burdened, because they want to do something about it. And by the way, burden is in emotionally burdened, not that they don't want to do anything about it. And so I feel like it is a systematic problem, because if we're saying, and I've attended sessions, with dyslexia too, and they keep saying the same thing, that a lot of these things can be managed when learners are younger. So when they're preschool or primary school students. So why isn't anything being done about it? By the way, I'm throwing the question at the wrong crowd, but why isn't anything being done about it if we know that measures can be taken at that age level?
I think I have a friend who has a child with autism, and he's Japanese, and he said that if the parents notice something really early on, there's a lot of intervention that can be done, and it opens the road to more support. But if the parents don't take that first step, that support mechanism doesn't exist. So then it just goes on and on and on. And if the parents don't sort of do something by, say, primary school, then again, they've lost their chance. And again, that support option is gone. And it's not only support, like in terms of interventions and that sort of thing, but it's also the support for the parents as well. So that seems to be a sort of like the sad situation, that because parents realize the options available, they don't actually go there. So I don't know, Jennifer, is that something like in Japan? What do you think the support is like in Japan?
So, you know, I could compare with 3 countries. We went through a diagnostic process in 3 places, and Japan was the first place. And they offered us 1 hour a month of occupational therapy, which I have to say, the occupational therapist, though, was fantastic. And, you know, that 1 hour, they tell you what you're supposed to be doing at home, right? But in Israel, they offered us money, and you could use the money for like one-on-one therapy at home, or like special ed, like preschool special ed, which was a behavioral program like ABA. It's a kind of like one-on-one behavioral therapy, which means skill building. Like your kid, basically, you know, compared to my older son who's neurotypical, he couldn't do, the younger one couldn't do anything. So it's like sit in a chair for 3 seconds without, you know, falling off it, or, you know, try to focus, like you have 2 things, a blue card and a red card, point to the blue card using pointing, right? Like those kind of things. So you could pay and choose what therapy you wanted. And in Canada, in my province, where they have a really good special ed school, it was 30 hours a week of behavioral therapy. So, you know, other places offer more. Yeah, they offer more. And I went to camp. I took him to camp in Canada, like an autistic camp. And I was like, wow, it's like really good. It was really good. But, you know, they try here. And I think it's like, depending on me, like the kids that I saw in, one of them actually lives in my building. The kids that I saw in therapy, some of them were in wheelchairs and stuff, because they're, you know, like they have either multiple disabilities, or their autism is so profound that, you know, their coordination is not good. So, you know, I realized that, you know, you have to prioritize different people, and you'd offer different services to different people based on what their needs are. So, yeah. But you phase out quickly. I think you can get autism therapy here until you're about 7 by the government. And after that, you have to pay cash. And it's expensive. We paid cash for everything, except that 1 hour of occupational therapy bankrupt us. But it's $12,000 to $18,000 an hour for speech and ABA.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
This is fascinating.
That's sort of what my friend said. That's a different story yet again. So that's very interesting.
I think it depends on the ward you live in too, right? Like you go to the ward office. It's in Canada too. It's like certain provinces, people move to my province to get the 30 hours of ABA because they don't have it elsewhere. So, yeah.
Okay.
This is fascinating, and we have more questions coming in. Barb, you've got your hand raised.
I feel like the grouchy old lady saying this even. Like on the one hand, a lot of Japanese who are my age in the 60s, upper 50s, I wish to God that there had been diagnosis and treatment when they were in elementary school, because it would have saved them daily beatings. So they weren't just the kids who couldn't sit still and couldn't listen to the teacher. You know, they actually had some reason behind it. And I think they do a lot better in school now, for example. But at the other end of the spectrum, a lot of the teachers I encounter in workshops seem to have gotten just enough information to feel that they can diagnose kids. And that scares me a little bit, because, I mean, while they don't feel comfortable talking to parents about it, they feel really comfortable talking to each other about it. And so when I'm in teacher groups, like in Facebook and things, I'll say, yeah, I've got this autistic kid in my class, or, oh God, he's so dyslexic. And I thought, how, what testing did you do to arrive at that? And so it seems like, at the one end, there's no labeling, there's no diagnosis, there's no support, there's no treatment, and that's not good. But at the other end, where teachers feel like they can diagnose the kids, I don't think that's so good either. And that makes me feel like the grouchy old lady here.
No, I don't think that's grouchy old lady at all. I think that, you need to see the professionals, and it's a very long process for any diagnosis here, including dyslexia. So we had to see speech therapist, occupational therapist, neurologist, psychologist, pediatrician. There were a lot of people that we had to see, and the testing is grueling. It's horrible. And I understand why some parents might be in denial. I bet they're in denial because they've heard about the diagnostic process from other people. It's so awful. It's like watching your kid get tortured. It's awful. I mean, really, it's awful. And then you come out of there with like a telephone book thick of your kid can't, blah, 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 blah. The list is endless, right? So I can see why people don't want to join this community and be part of this culture. I totally get that. And I don't blame, because I was there. I remember what it was like to be there with this nagging feeling like there's something wrong, but nobody validates that. And finally you go, and it's a total nightmare. It's a total nightmare. And I gave up. I don't go to psychologists anymore. I don't need to, except like every 2 years to renew the TECHO, right? I don't go. I don't ask them for their help, because for the most part, they're trying to sell you things. Like, it's very monetized. I find in any country, it's like the therapies are so monetized that it's difficult for parents. So.
I'm backing up in the chat box, Jennifer, and there's a question from Angelica. If students get diagnosed, do they need to switch to a special education school or special education class? Can they be successful in a traditional class?
I think so. I think they can be successful in a traditional class. It depends. Obviously, if you're going in for a diagnosis, and you don't it's kind of not something that's really obvious, right? I think it's possible for anybody. It should be possible for anybody to get an education in a regular class. And that's been established, like that's the law in most places, right? So I have never heard, but then again, I don't know, but I've never heard that you have to go to a special ed class. I think that's against the law in Japan to force someone. They have special ed classes, but you can't tell somebody that they have to go there. So I think it's possible. It's just that most kids, my own kid included, did not have a positive experience in mainstream. But that's mostly, I think, exactly because, curriculum isn't differentiated. People they don't know what autism is. They don't, I don't know what dyslexia is. Like, I've heard about it, I've read about it a bit, but I don't really know. So I can't, what am I supposed to do, right? I just got a student diagnosed with dyslexia, and they gave me like a little list of 3 things to ask me to do in class. But, that's my signal to sit down with her and ask her, what exactly do you need? How exactly can I help you? Which I will do this week. But yeah, I think it's up to us to differentiate, but no, they don't have to go to special needs, and they can succeed, I think.
Thank you so much. I think we need to take a break here. And I feel like there's still questions we haven't gotten to in the chat box. There's a lot happening and a lot of resources being shared. So if you haven't checked out the chat box, take the time to pop in there and see what's there. We'll take a short 5-minute break and then come back for Alex's presentation. So unmute your mics, and a big round of applause for Jennifer. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we ready to start up again, Gabby?
I think so.
Hi, Alex, are you ready? Looking at the Venn diagram.
Yeah, there she is.
Good.
Here I am. I'm back. Okay. So, wow, it's just very, very inspiring, as always. Listening to Jennifer, like I just learn so much, and I think I always think in another way after listening to her perspectives. Now, right, I'm going to get ready to share my screen, and I would like to, thank you all for giving us your afternoon, and also because there are not enough people out there who see students who are different as part of their responsibility. They just think, oh, it's that's somebody else's job, and it's not actually, because it's all of us. So I'm just wrestling with my presentation again. Okay, here we go. And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to, I recently had COVID, and it did actually affect my ability to manage screens. So, and I'm very indebted to the help of Jose Domingo Cruz, who spent quite a lot of time this morning helping me to set things up. Now I'll just get to my share screen, and okay, and let's bring this up. Okay, now share my screen, and here it is here. Share.
We are.
Okay, now hopefully you can see my, towards accessible learning for all. And I'm actually one of the people that is in the frame here myself. So I have dyslexia, I have ADHD. I used not tell anybody about that. In fact, I didn't know that I had ADHD until I was 39. I got diagnosed after one of my kids got diagnosed. And that was both terrifying and interesting, because I was scared of finding out that I wasn't very bright. And I hear that from people so often, that they are scared of finding out that there's something wrong with themselves, there's something wrong with their kids. And I went through that situation of having my child diagnosed with something when they were 6 weeks old. And suddenly I was in Holland. I was not in Italy either. I had something I didn't expect, and I had to deal with it, but definitely it was shock. So then when my kid got diagnosed with ADHD, I realized that a lot of people had been trying to tell me, but I was not willing to listen. Because there was such a big stigma about it. And first and foremost, I would like you to know that the person who invented the PCR test had ADHD. And unfortunately, he passed away in 2019. So he never saw what his amazing discovery when he was out driving in the middle of a desert in 1983 would mean to the world. But he had ADHD. So ADHD is not a bad thing. And so I'm looking at here about brain wiring and what's different, and how classroom changes, how you do it, why you do it, teacher changes, how you do things, and what our external environment is at the moment. So I'm going to start at the end, and I do that to reduce anxiety, and I certainly do that in my classrooms as a teacher. I let students know, where are we going with a particular project? What's the reason? Because I, as a young dyslexic person, I always wanted to know why and how. And often teachers would say, it just is. You just have to do it. And that did not work for me. It really didn't work. And it led to me eventually dropping out of school. And it led me dropping out of school because teachers only focused on my handwriting, or my, or the fact that I didn't finish everything, or the fact it wasn't neat, or the fact I wanted to look at the unusual things. but really I needed to know where we were going. So you're probably thinking about taking notes, and this is something you're going to get afterwards. This is a neurodiversity collection that I've just sort of grabbed things from all over the place. It's in a document called a Padlet, and you'll have a huge series of links and resources. So don't worry, that's coming up. And I might just call it, yeah. So that's in this slide. But what I'd like us to do first is to think about this issue. As a teacher, you might hear this from parents, my kid is not the academic one. But the reality is most kids in a family are equally intelligent. We just don't see it the right way. Not so much the right way as we don't give people the opportunity to demonstrate their skills. And I've seen this factor in my family. I've seen it in other friends' families. And I've seen friends who've become extraordinarily successful as older people, but had a shocking time being compared to their siblings. So we need to actually help to change that mindset. It's not that they're not academic, it's not that they're not capable, but the way we are offering the access to education hasn't been good. But the good news is that Japan is actually working on that. So let's have a look at us as a group. Now, here I have a little document, it's an anonymous survey. It's in Japanese and English, and I'd like you to whip out your phones and take a picture of the scan, but I'm also going to drop this link in the chat for you. So I'd like you to do the survey, and we're going to share the results. So no one will see your name, but you get to everybody. So 2 ways to get to it in the okay, so everybody can have a go at that survey. Please do the survey. Okay, one person's in already. And okay, well, Michael, you can click on the link in the chat. So this is one of the things I do in my classrooms is I usually give students 2 ways to get at something. And I would really hope that if you're in that situation in a classroom, please consider about doing this. It's actually pretty simple to do. And it's as simple as if you've got a lot of web browsers now, you can right click and it will give you the option to create a QR code. And that's what I did for this slide. Okay, there's 9, 10, lots of responses are rocketing in. I don't know how many people we've got here. I can't quite see the presenter. See how many people are in the room at the moment.
24.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my window has disappeared again. Okay, how are we going? Okay, I got 17. Is anybody else wanting to do the presentation? I mean, not the presentation, do the survey, get the word right. This is refreshing. And okay, there's a few more coming in now. And it's going to be a very interesting set of responses, I think. Okay, we've got 20 responses. And so I'm just going to, switch my screen share to, oh, it's black screen for you. Now, if it's a black screen, is that, Jose, is there an answer to, is that because an update issue?
Is this a black screen on the Google form, or she's talking about she can't see your presentation share?
Yeah, Megan, what is the, is it the PowerPoint or is it the Google form? You can turn on your mic. You can't see the PowerPoint.
Megan, are you on a good Wi-Fi connection? Because I can see the presentation just fine.
I'm using a Kindle, if that helps.
Depending on which Kindle you're using, unfortunately, I'm not that familiar with them. But is there any other way you can connect to this presentation? Otherwise, I don't know if that Kindle is helping you the way that you want it to.
I could see the first presentation. I just can't see Alex's presentation.
How about that you leave this presentation on the Kindle and come back to it using the same link that was provided to you? Otherwise, maybe rebooting the Kindle Zoom appware will be able to get you back in here and see the presentation as well.
Okay, I'll try that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, right, I'm just going to stop this share and I'm going to go to my Zoom link now. Into my Google responses. Okay, and share screen. And there we go, Google Chrome, and share. Okay, so let's see if I can zoom in on this. Okay, so here are our answers. So in our group, we've got 65 people, 65% of the people hear the words they're reading when they're reading silently, but we have 10% of people who don't, and 25% of people, it depends on what you're actually reading. And so far, nobody has said reading is hard for me. Okay, next. Do you see a picture in your mind of what you are reading? And so we have 10% of people don't see any images when they are reading. And that's not unusual. Sometimes this figure is higher, sometimes it's lower. 45% say it depends on what I'm reading, which is really interesting as well. And the other 45% say, yes, they see a picture. And as for me, I see everything I read or I hear as an image. Everything turns into an image instantly. Okay, can you take notes? I am definitely in the green category. I can't take notes. I really can't do it. So studying was difficult for me. When I did get to university, I used audio. I recorded the lectures and I listened to them. If I listen to something twice, I can remember it basically forever. So we've got 55% of people say yes, they can take notes, 20% can't, but we've got quite a decent group of people who can't take notes. So we have to be able to teach in a way that allows people to use different mechanisms. Do you enjoy writing by hand? We've got 50% yes, 10% no, 40% it depends. And that's a difficult situation for people in Japan because writing is not only a means of communication, it's absolutely an art as well. But I've seen students who are dyslexic who are fabulous calligrapher, absolutely beautiful calligraphers, but had difficulty writing in books. Okay, which hand do you write with? We have most of the group are, this is pretty standard, pretty typical response. So when you look in, if you're teaching in a school or at university, I want you to think about how is the setup for your students? If you're working in a classroom with computers, Are your computers set up only for right-handers? Because think about the power difference between a student and a teacher. Can the student say, hey, change this to my left hand? The student doesn't want to draw attention to themselves. So there is a link between dyslexia and left-handedness. It's not a, it's a small link, but it is there. But the left-handers do live in a right-handed world. So if you're right-handed, please look at your environment and think about what you're doing, how it's set up. Can it be used as a universal design so that either people who are left-handed, right-handed, or ambidextrous could use it? Okay, and have we got a couple more comments? Oh, thank you. OCD makes reading and writing hard on the day it was far worse as a child. Yes, I think mine is actually mine's actually getting harder as I get older. So thank you very much for sharing those insights. I'm just going to stop that share and go back to the PowerPoint. So have you got any comments after seeing that? Could we talk for about 2 or 3 minutes in a breakout room? Is that possible? Can we put people into breakout rooms for a moment? So
Okay, I will do that.
thank you. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome back. Okay. Now, in our group, we talked about the issue of handedness, and I got people to attempt to write something with both hands at the same time. And people were surprised that they could or they couldn't do it. And out of that, what I would really like people to do is, I would like you to consider that if somebody has, consider that they may have been forced to change from their natural left hand to their right hand as a child. And if you comment on the style of their handwriting, you are compounding a discrimination against that child. Adam just said he's null-handed, null-handed neither. I think it's, can't see the full comment. I'm not either with those. Ambidextrousness, I think it is genetic. I know we have a lot of them in my family. My grandmother used to switch hands while playing tennis, which freaked out her opponents a lot. She just thought it was more efficient to just switch the bat over. And nobody had ever said to her that's a problem. They were just like, whoa. And I had a student, yesterday I had a student in class with Advantage, and I asked him to, I said to him, oh gosh, that's difficult, because I was teaching them a pronunciation trick, and they needed to do this basically. And I said, do you know how to use voice dictation? And he said, no, sorry. So I said, okay, right. And I stopped my program and I taught the entire class to use voice dictation, which is really simple on your phone. You probably already have it enabled if you have Siri on your phone, or if you have an Android and you have Google Talk. I'd like you to look at your phone for a moment and look for the microphone. You go to a chat function or a notes function, look at the microphone. Look at the microphone and try and talk into your, put your cursor to where you would chat, do something by chat, and hit the microphone and talk into your phone. Just say anything to it. Hello, my name is, or something. You can do it if you're on a computer. You can do it by on a Mac. You can double tap the function key. Okay, was anybody able to do it? Did you try? And took you to a Google search. Okay, so you might have been on an Android device. Yeah, so if you're on iPhone, basically, I'll show you on my phone. I'll just go to a page. I'll just give myself a page, and here we go. All right, I'm going to share via Wi-Fi. Okay, here we go. Share screen, and you'll see my iPhone in a moment. iPhone via AirPlay. Okay, Zoom, Alexandra's, okay, here we go, got it. And okay, this will just come up in a second. Here we go. Now, here's my iPhone. This was something I was definitely going to raise with you guys. So some people say in my classroom, students don't touch the teacher's computer. Well, I would say, oh, you like computers. Is there something you want to show me? Connect with the kid. So now I'm going to, at the bottom of my screen, I've got there's a microphone down here, and I'm going to touch the microphone. And hello, my name is Alex Burke. Full stop. I love technology. I live on technology. Full stop. Nice to meet you. Exclamation mark. Bye. And new line. New line. Okay, and I'm going to switch to Japanese now. Here is Japanese, English. Oh, hang on, Japanese. Okay, Nihongo. Okay, and konnichiwa. Burke Alexandra tomoshimasu. Yoroshiku onegai itashimasu. Maru. Okay, now, and here I've got a whole lot of menus here, and just think how, I'm going to go back to English Australia, and I'm done. Now I can copy this and I can paste it anywhere. So that's what we can do with our technology. Any questions? Well, there's the chat sort of lighting up a bit. Now, why would I teach you this? I would teach you this because you may have a student with a broken hand tomorrow. Give them a way to be able to continue studying. I fell on my shoulder and couldn't use my shoulder for 6 months. That was a number of years ago, and I learned to use voice dictation. You can use your phone to control and to read to you. For example, here on my phone, I've also got another function, which is, go back to that share. And this is a really valuable function, and students need to be able to use this. Okay, AirPlay and Zoom. Zoom, here it comes. Okay, it's coming up now. It's just taking a moment because okay, now we've got this. Now up at the top here, I've got a little gray area on the top, and what I've got there is a device for reading aloud. And if I'll just check on my sound, on my share, if I've enabled sound, otherwise you won't hear it. Jose, is there a shortcut to if you've forgotten to share correctly?
What are you trying to do, Alex?
Get to this thing to talk. So
to get the
June 12.
There you go.
In my classroom, students don't touch the teacher's computer. You like computers. Was there something you wanted to show me? Hello, my name is Alex Burke. I love technology. I live on technology. Nice to meet you.
Okay. So now, any of you who have a device, basically have got the technology right now to not have to stare at the screen to read something. You can actually just get your computer to read to you. Imagine how much stress that is going to save your eyes if your computer reads everything to you. I hope that will make your lives a little better, and I hope that is something that you could show your students. This is my brain on technology. Okay, hang on. Okay, right, I'm going to carry on, otherwise I'm going to get lost. Now, so we've had our survey, we've done our, oops, back to my share. Okay, it's going a bit COVID brain again here, and buffering. Okay, here's my slideshow and share. Okay, so I want you to think about in your classroom, how do you use your class? How can people access materials? Is there tolerance of diversity? And I want you to take this challenge and The most important thing you can do is build connection between people. And how do we build connection? We remove isolation. If you have activities that involve talking to somebody, the single worst thing you can do is say, go find a partner, because your student who is different will have experienced, years or decades of not being able to get a partner. The classroom shouldn't be somewhere where these things get perpetuated. We should be, take the stress out of it. In my classroom, there is always a rotation system, and I have it on the board. Students know where they're going. And when we first do it, I say to them, okay, now you're here, you've got your partner. Look, where is your next partner going to be? And they look at their next partner, so the rotation goes really smoothly. And what happens is that there is less stress involved in changing partners. Students who are isolated are more likely to enjoy the process. And I've done exit surveys with students about things, and they've come back with kids saying, yeah, there was nobody reporting that they didn't like it. People said they enjoyed talking, etc. So reduce, get rid of a scramble concept. Just don't do it. Offer people the ability to interact by text as well as talking. Give them concrete examples to work with. So when your students are included, when you're using inclusion, students' interaction will go up, their output will go up, your group cohesion goes up, your trust goes up, and the education duration increases. Number one problem for people with neurodiversity is they are at risk of dropping out of the system early, which is exactly what I did. Textbook case. But luckily, a good teacher said to me, hey, where'd you go to university? After I'd been working as a musician for a few years. And I said, well, I didn't. And they said, well, you write really well. It's about time you did. So I went to university later. But that did make a big change in my educational trajectory and why I'm here, I guess. Now, I'm not lazy. I never was lazy. I just have a differently wired brain. And we're talking about 10 to, in America, they would say 10 to 20% of your students in a class are different. And in Japan, this is starting to be analysed a bit better. Some people say too much attention. You can reduce distractions in the classroom by reducing the amount of white noise that you make as a teacher. Put things on the board so students know what the steps are, and then offer them choice. So I ask my students to go around and look at their university and take pictures. And this is one of my favorites. They went and took a picture, but not just any picture. They went out at night to get the most beautiful picture of that building that they could find. And that was by offering them, simply by offer people choice. I'd like people to value ideas, not perfection, not neat handwriting or fast work. Create a culture of valuing ideas, and you do that by giving people the chance to interact in different ways. Small steps. Is your classroom a tall step classroom, or is it a small step classroom? Is it easy for somebody to get up there? If somebody's got money, Jennifer showed a picture earlier on about the equity model. If somebody's got a lot of support, their ladder has got really small steps on it. If they've got adversity, maybe they have a familial history of learning differences, they might have something else going on. It's because some of these things are genetic. You'll have a family history of people who haven't succeeded in education and have grown up feeling that they're not connected. So make your classroom a small step classroom. You will be okay, not if you try. Students are always trying. They don't come out of the packet not wanting to try. They come out of the packet ready to try when information is given to them in a way that's accessible. And that means giving people options. The and you'll be okay, can also be used by what's called the wait and see approach. And Jennifer mentioned that as well. The wait and see approach, oh, they're just boys, or they're just not academic, or they're slow learners, or she's never liked writing, or people don't grow out of it. You've got to give people an opportunity to interact in a way that is meaningful to them. And this is just a little example about color, for example. This will be a bigger issue in other countries than in Japan, but these are all, this is from a Japanese piece of software by Professor Akazawa, I think his name is, and this simulates what the top left-hand side is conventional vision, and down here what we have is called deuteronomy, which is a red-green, and then this one up here on the right, protanopia, is another form of vision that affects your ability to process reds and greens. And then on the right is another system, another kind called tritanopia. And I've talked with a student who had tritanopia, and their best color on the board was fluorescent pink. They could read fluorescent pink. They could not read yellow on the board. If you are using color in your classroom on your whiteboards, whoops, hang on a second. I just want to go to this. Where is it? Okay, here. I'll just skip over to this one. Pen color. If you're a person who edits in red, how does a student who with protanopia understand what you've written? The student up here, is it easy for them to see what you've written? No, it's just not easy for them to see. It's easy for the typical learners. It's not easy for that student. It's not only easy for this student. And think about in your classrooms, how you use color. Do you put students in a position where they have to identify a color? Think very carefully about that, because quite a lot of people don't know what the color status is. Okay, now, okay. Right, okay, I'd like you to look at using visual text and examples. So this is, I'm working on visual grammar at the moment. And this was a concept by Betty Azar. She does grammar charting. And I teach students, I do the physical thing of past, present, future. Past, present, future. I go through that with the students. And I have taught using this model to Year 6 kids, because Year 6 students are now studying tenses in English. And so by putting this here and putting gummy bears on it, thanks to my husband who sort of set these up, I've put something that is interesting to students, and it gives them a visual idea of what's going on. And so there are going to be more of these. I'm in the process of setting these up. This is another one. This will be I will eat gummy bears. So I'm going to have a whole series, and the gummy bears are going to be over here in the future. The gummy bears will be there, and there will be a half-eaten gummy bear on a half-eaten gummy bear left on the past tense. I ate gummy bears. There will be I'll put a half-eaten one, and then the kids will instantly understand that that's something that's happened before. Another thing I was about to show you, but I did okay, here it is. Right, I'll just go to this screen, change my share, new share, stop share, okay. New share. I realized that some of my students were not reading, they weren't absorbing the curriculum through the syllabus. So I made a visual syllabus for the students, because the students that, these education students and the students are, they come out of the book learning phase. The high school students are going into, have gone into device learning phases. And so the starting skills, so I acknowledge the fact that they don't come in as a blank slate. They've already got skills. I've given them some resources, and they get in-class work to do. These are the things that they will need to do in self-study and practice. When they do their performance 1, they're going to be doing a presentation and somebody's going to be listening to them. When they're doing performance 2, they're going to, in between, they're going to develop these things. It's going to be 2-way. And their final step is to shift to a 3-way conversation. which and quite complex language about demographics of different countries. And they're going to need to be able to do that while maintaining eye contact and interrupting each other. And students absolutely sat up to look when I shifted to this model. So if you have any way of making stuff visual, do it, because it attracts the attention of everybody. Okay, share. Okay, how are we going for time at the moment? I'm not good with time.
Fine.
Fine, okay. This is one of the interesting things about ADHD. There's and it's being documented by doctors Hallowell and Ratey in a book called ADHD 2.0. That for people with ADD, there is now and not now. There is nothing else. It's either now or it's not now. So and I have difficulty calculating time myself. Okay, and go back to my keynote now. Okay, and share. Okay, so I've done this one. I've just shown you the English communication one. Okay, I want you to take the chair challenge in your room. Oops. Okay, these are situations I've seen in the classroom, and you can see the difference of experience of the student relative to where they're sitting. Go into your classroom, sit in the chair, turn on your devices, look at how big is your text on your board. Go and sit in the back row. Is your information big enough? If you are writing on a whiteboard, I would recommend that you don't use black. I'd recommend if you can get a large purple whiteboard marker, that would be useful if you need a highlighter, because purple is one of the colors that can be seen quite easily by people with color blindness and people without color blindness. So this is your homework, is to go and sit in every chair in your classroom. And on the end of the in the Padlet, I'm including a link to the software that you can use to look at the color differences. So you'll be able to look at your room and go, oh my, particularly if you look at a whiteboard, you might be in for a shock. Okay, we also have an issue of a few hands up. And again, I want to go back to something that Jennifer mentioned about if you have a student who's different, do you make it easier for them by not putting them in a position? Or are you actually disadvantaging them by reducing the opportunity? And that was something I struggled with. I have had students who were elective mutes. And so in my classes, I never get people to do presentations in front of a group unless they actually want to do that, unless they actually it's something that we're required and a required part of the system. But in that case, like, everybody gets to do it and everybody gets lots of practice before. So you do have a problem of a few hands up, and the few hands up are usually the students who've had access to money, access to extra education. They may be, in elementary school, it's going to be the kids with the ADD. By the time they are in about year 4, those hands won't be going up anymore. Those kids will be sitting and looking very wary of what's going on. So will the kids with dyslexia. They will not be wanting to put their hand up. But in year 5, it'll be predominantly boys putting their hand up. The girls stop putting their hands up. And then you end up with only the kids who have got supported education will be the ones volunteering, and everybody else is passive. And that's not a good situation in a communication environment. So I brought in this word wall, the word wall spinning wheel. It's a free resource from, the website is called Word Wall. If somebody wouldn't mind typing that in the chat, that would be great. So Word Wall, and it's called the random wheel, random number wheel. And so I just dial that up and stick it on the screen, and the students love it. They love the fear of it landing on them. And I usually introduce it with a low risk task. And that's, the student, and after introducing it, I've often asked students, okay, would you prefer to volunteer? And they say, no, we want to use the wheel. So it's turning English into something fun rather than something that's not so fun. And I don't know why it works. It's just magic. If your classroom, sorry, backtracking a tiny bit here, if your classroom has a universal design chalk, it's called iChalk, please use it. I usually have it in my bag, but I'll probably get it around here. Just one moment. If there is unusual coloured chalk in your room at an institution, grab it and use it. You won't know, quite possibly, if any of your students have got visual differences. It may not be disclosed to you. If you're at a university, you can, no, I don't have it here. If you're at a university, you can go and ask, are there students in my class who have learner needs of some sort, unusual needs? So just go to the student affairs department, the academic affairs department, and ask them. Okay, and I took that picture from just behind the teacher's desk, and that was a dirty board as well. Never write on a dirty board. It's impossible for somebody to see from the back. If you write in red, it's going to be impossible for those students to read. Okay, and you've seen that one. Okay, something that setting your colors. Definitely on your computer, you can change to dark mode, and now dark mode is a very common option on just about any website that you have. And so basically, you would go to the website, your browser, and you click on the URL at the top, and you might often see a thing called a reader. It's reader is usually a little sort of symbol with an A and a bigger uppercase and lowercase a on it. And most websites now have the option to change your screen to dark mode. Dark mode is going to make life a lot easier for you. It's going to be a lot easier for students. Now, okay, something went beep. Okay, what's happened in the external environment is that we now have a thing called the GIGA. Japan has got a thing called the GIGA Global Innovation Gateway, or the GIGA school system. And I was talking to my daughter today about how is that playing out where she works. And she works she works outside of Tokyo, and her area has a system where all of the students in elementary school have got a tablet. But more than just having a tablet, they also have the headphones, and they can use their headphones to listen to material, or they can read it with their eyes. They can adjust their screen to suit their eyes. It makes a huge difference to your ability to study if you are able to listen. For some dyslexics, the part of the brain that processes language is not going to light up until they hear the material. What is going to light up is another part of the brain which is associated with anxiety. So if you say to everybody, okay, everybody, let's read, that's going to trigger an anxious reaction because they're going to have another experience of failing. For teaching younger learners from a young age upwards, always give students an opportunity to practice. Always give them, and when you practice, you model for them, you get them to practice together. And if you are requiring students to read aloud, then I recommend that you tell everybody to start reading and reading and reading, and you tell them to keep going until you say stop. So you tell them to kurikaishi until you say stop. So if you finished, good, go back to the beginning, just keep going, keep going, keep going. And you walk around and you listen to what people are doing. you listen to what the sounds that they're making, etc. And when you know that your least sort of enthusiastic readers have finished and are on their way back through again, that's when you say to everybody, okay, thanks everybody, let's stop. And then you go through the words that you noticed people were having difficulty with reading. You could also get people to underline the words that they're having difficulty with reading. You could have a Google form, and an anonymous Google form or Teams form, and say, put the words in that you want help with. So there are technical options around. I'm so excited to know that at the school where my daughter is, that is happening now, that there will be students, one student is sitting and listening, one student is sitting and reading. They are getting to work the way they need to. I taught you earlier about the voice dictation. That's another option. There's no reason why people can't dictate their input for materials. And with the Giga initiative, the teachers have to be the model, and Jennifer also said we've got to model these things. So when you model using technology effectively, then your students are going to try. And I shared a page on universal design fonts with the students. I'll just switch to the Padlet so I can show it to you. One moment. Let's go over to the Padlet and okay, here we go. Padlet, share screen, Padlet, share screen, and okay, Padlet neurodiversity collection. Okay, now you can see this thing. I'm just going to make it bigger so you can see more of it. Okay, this is a set of, yep, here it comes. So this is a set of resources, and on here, sorry, it's a little bit jumpy at the moment. Okay, there's a series of resources on designing for accessibility. Here's the Japan's Giga school model that I mentioned to you before. That's a link to a model that's being done quite well in Tokyo. Okay, here we are, designing for diversity. Okay. Hey, I don't know if this is coming up big or not. No, you don't think you can see that at the moment. What's appearing on the screen right now?
Your Padlet, Alex.
Padlet, okay. So I just want to make this one pop out to be bigger. Okay, I'm going to have to switch to the other. Switch over. Just a second, I'll go to the other screen. Okay, we're over in Safari. Okay, what you can now see is these are a series of posters that were made in England, and therefore they were made with the intention of improving people's access to services. And the posters themselves, so the UK government funded these about 8 or 9 years ago. And so there's a whole lot of options for how to arrange information. And what has happened now is that this set of posters have been translated into Japanese, and you can basically print out a copy of these and just stick them on boards. Like stick them on a notice board. So you get the Japanese version and put it on a notice board at your workplace. And I should have the Japanese one, should be right here. Oh, here we go, Japanese version. I'll just get this to come up. Okay, it comes. I'm just waiting for it to appear. Okay, here we go. And Is that now, you're now seeing this in the green window or the share window?
I'm seeing the katakana accessibility.
Okay, right. So we've got accessibility. So these posters, you can basically print these out and stick them up at university or in your school. If you're in the school, put them where the teachers can see them. Put them in the library. And they are things that you can do to make information more accessible. And I showed these to some students the other day who were doing their first PowerPoint for me. And I showed them the slides. And then last night at about 1 a.m., my phone went ping and a student said, I've redone my poster, my PowerPoint, and now it's a UD PowerPoint. And I was very happy to be woken up at 1 a.m. by the phone going ping, when to see that a student had actually taken that on and she'd changed it. She had changed her, she had read it all, she had thought about it. And if we share these with the young people and young adults that we are working with, they are going to change the future. They are going to make the world an easier place to be. And this link is right here inside the Padlet, which you're about to get shortly. I'm going to also just show you something else. I'm sort of starting to run out of steam here. If you can include games in your activities. So somebody said something?
No, Alex, it was just extraneous noise.
Okay, right.
Actually, Alex, you said you're sort of running out of steam, so if you wrap up in about 5 minutes, that's great.
Okay, so I've just done a project with some students, and let me just share I'm just going to close. So this screen here here's dyslexia, and see that dyslexia thing there? That's exactly what the experience is like for my brother, and it's the same as it was for one of my kids. And I went through the experience of having my kid drop out of the same year of high school that I did. So it's made me even more ferociously determined to change the future and to work with the Japanese people who are trying to change the future. And here is one of them. There is a link to this book in the Padlet. This book is called Dyslexia Dakara Daijobu. So it's only dyslexia, so it's going to be okay. And if you can get that book into your, organization, put it on the shelf, show it to the teachers. If you have teachers who are English speakers, then there is a parallel book which is called the Dyslexic Advantage. I keep forgetting the name of it. It's originally a book that came from psychologists in America, Burke and Yphantides, and they wrote a book about the experience of being dyslexic and what people can do and how to look at it from a strengths model as opposed to a weaknesses model. And Japan is still very much in the weaknesses model, but thanks to the Giga School, we're going to get to be able to go to the strengths model. If you can introduce game-based learning, it will be a lot more fun for your students. You really will enjoy it. They'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. It will be great all around. And that is yeah. Sorry, I think I am running out of steam at the moment now. Okay, questions. Let's go to the Padlet. And do you want to go to breakout rooms, or do you want to have a go at the Padlet and start writing some questions? So on the Padlet, I'll just switch back to the QR code. Things in the chat I might need to. Black and white is difficult for some people. Card games, if students have problems with, there's if you're going the color thing, I would be getting a set of Koopi crayons in your classroom, and because the Koopi crayons all have the name of the color written on them, they have it stamped into them. So your experience of color and their experience of color is different. Their experience is not wrong. It is simply different. They will still see the color and they will see it, they will have a range of colors they see, but they will be different to what you see. Doesn't mean they're wrong. So give them, if you're putting up color things, make sure that you name the colors. So, and then you don't say, okay, everybody, where's the red one? When it's just a red square, like, no, that's not going to help them, because somebody's going to say, and you say, what color is that? And the kid's going to go, yellow. And everybody's going to go, ha, 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 ha. I've seen that happen. No, let's not put people in that situation.
Alex, for those of us that don't read Japanese quickly, on your last slide, I was frantically reading what's good and what's not good.
Oh, there's an English version.
Designing materials. Can I just ask you quickly?
Yeah.
Circle diagram, good. Justifying to the left, good. Capital letters, not good. Underlining, not good.
That's right. Yep. Underlining, not good. All
that surprised me. I do a lot of underlining.
Yeah.
Underlining in red.
It's not good. And the reason it's not good is it is for a dyslexic, it's going to interrupt the shape of the letter.
Ah, that makes sense.
And what I haven't shown you is the bottle caps, and you need to see that. Okay, here we go. Okay, sorry, I do need to distract you with this for a moment, and then I will actually shut up and let you have a go at the Padlet. Okay. All right. I got to the iPad via cable. Okay, iPad via cable. Okay. That is what dyslexia might look like to people. This is what it might look like to regular people. But for some people with dyslexia, they are going to see this. So you ask them to read aloud and they're going to melt. They're going to absolutely melt. Okay, here is another thing. This is color. Can it make a difference? Look at this. I gave this kid a very small piece of blue plastic. I gave all the kids in the class pieces of plastic filters. If you search on the internet, you will find things saying, oh, plastic filters don't work. There's no good. You must teach them proper phonics only. No, we don't all learn the same way. We learnt that when we did the survey just now. We learnt that some of us hear things when we read. Some of us see things when we read. Some of us, we're all slightly different. So that boy had a very, very small piece of blue plastic cut out of a Daiso clear folder, and look at what happened to the word Norway. The first time he wrote it, he was copying, and then he popped into the staff room and I said, oh, do you want to have another go? And he sat down and looked at the second attempt with a bit of blue plastic over it. Correct number of letters, N is round the right way. The letters are roughly spaced correctly. Look at the size of his A. The A has changed shape. And this is, color can make a dramatic difference too. You can get color sets. You can get these off the internet. This is called, those bands are called masking. Even for people who don't have dyslexia, this can make a difference. And the color that you choose to work in can actually affect sort of how much eye stress you get. And sorry, teaching people visual pronunciation. I've done that with, this is from a year 4 textbook. Okay, here's another thing. I asked the students after showing them about color differences, how did they think it would be good to let people know what color chalk is being used, and they all rushed and volunteered to write on the board, to write the names of the colors on the board, and that stayed there for the rest of the academic year with that class. Every time it got dirty, somebody would replace it, and that was student driven because they wanted to have a fair classroom. Somebody just said about using blue paper rather than white with a dyslexic student. Yep, that's correct. Now, that's probably for that particular individual. The number of people who are likely to be diagnosed with dyslexia is very, very low. but the number of people you have in your classroom who have dyslexia is probably 10 to 15%.
Hi.
Depending on where you are.
Hi, I'm on my way.
Jose,
So
we can hear you.
Do you have time to talk?
Jose,
Yeah,
hot
sure.
mic.
Let's talk. How are you?
Jose, mute. Somebody mute Jose. Okay, good. He's muted. Good. Okay. Yeah, and those people who don't understand. Okay, this is another one of my diagrams. This appears on lots of other things. With the dyslexic person, give everybody the option of a color, or better off, teach them how to change the color on their computer. And I've got instructions for that on my page, I believe there. These things intersect. And I'm one of the lucky people who's pretty much got the whole jackpot on this set of skills, which is difficulty concentrating, difficulty reading, difficulty writing, difficulty with maths, and I'm really badly coordinated. And so I'm a sort of what's called a jackpot person in this. I call myself a jackpot person. This is ADHD, and this is the teacher. That little tiny circle is the teacher. And this is what's going on. It's like having 20 screens going at once in your head. And you are only one tiny one of them. And this is what happens when people get their ADHD remediated. ADHD is a brain-based difference. It is not willpower. There is now a screen available in Japan which can tell whether you have ADHD, which variety of ADHD you have, which kinds of learning differences you have, and also it can give much more better information on autism spectrum. Now that's a new screener. It's available across Japan. I'll put a link in the thing. And this is what happens when people say, oh, but if they want to do something, they can do anything if they really want to. They just don't want to do something else. Why? Because it's fun. Make your class fun. And these bottle caps are one of the things that is fun. You can use these, bottle caps are everywhere. I've got open dyslexic font on there because you can, open dyslexic font is good because you can see it's a weighted font on the bottom. And I usually use this process of progressing from students building a tower out of paper cups, which I don't have a picture of right here. And then they go to the individual bottle, go to individual letters, and then they move to words. And if you're going to have to teach phonics to people, this was done for me by one of my fabulous friends in England. And I was trying to memorize phonics, and as a dyslexic, it was difficult to memorize the symbols. So she made me my own personal phonemic chart. And there's a picture of her cat there for the j sound is Joe. Joe, so Joe's on there. Poo, ear, calorie mate, because she knows I eat it in the car while I'm driving to work. Koi. And so I use this technique. I use this technique with my students. I get them to do their own version of this chart and personalize it. It's a lot of fun. And okay, this is dyslexic handwriting. Actually, this is dysgraphic. Look at the way the writing is going up and down. If you see that going on, you're definitely looking at somebody who's got, they've definitely got different processing, because what they're watching is actually undulating. And that's what happens to me when I try to read music. I can't read music. Anyway, I've got these links. I'm going to stick some links into that Padlet chat for you to have a look at some other points. And I think I've pretty much covered what I was going to throw at you. But yeah, let's go to the Padlet, and people can talk or write in there. And I need to remember how to stop the share. Okay. Okay, and last share is how to get to the Padlet. And here it is here. So you can now scan that, and you can go to the Padlet. When you are in the Padlet, you can click on something, click on a button and you can write something. You can add us some links. If you've got links, you can add them for us. I'll just grab the Padlet code for you. Just a minute, the Padlet code. I'll grab that so you can access it to the person who doesn't have their phone, doesn't have the phone upstairs. Let me just grab that. Okay, here we go. That do's and don'ts poster is inside the it's inside the Padlet. So yep, visitors can write, copy link to the copy link. Okay, I'm just going to drop the Padlet link into the clipboard.
Alex, I love to like things. So if you fix that Padlet so we can like or give stars, I will
okay, let me just
definitely do that.
I'll just have a look. So those who haven't seen Padlet, I'll just show you what I'm doing. Stop share, share the Padlet so you can see it's really, really easy technology to use. Here is our share screen. Okay, here's share screen. I'm going to go to the Padlet, optimized video clip. Here's Padlet. Here we go, Padlet Neurodiversity Collection. Okay, and here's the Padlet, and if I want to put something onto it, and if I want to allow the likes, we go up into the settings, and I can change the color scheme, attributing. People want to do that. New post position, reactions. Okay, let's turn on the reactions. And people want to like things. They can like things. Okay, here we go. You can give them stars if you want to. Okay, and I would love you to share your ideas. Oh, look, it's got filter profanity is on there. So I'd love you to share your ideas. How do you do that? You grab you click on this. You can either click on one of these things here, questions, fonts. Oh, I didn't talk about fonts today. I should have done. So fonts, if I wanted to talk about font, oops. I'm having trouble with there's a bit of lag because it's a lot of data. That should be saying what font should I use. Okay, and so now anybody can comment on that. So yeah, I'd like you to go for it and start doing things. I would love you to look at the immersive reader function. Click on the pencil thing and type. You can put links in here. You can put images in there. You can change the color. So you write something and then you just hit the publish button once you've finished. Okay, so I'll just shut this other screen down. I'll let you write for a moment.